Ladies and gentlemen, we're witnessing the end of an era. With Aquaman and the Last Kingdom, or the Lost Kingdom, or whatever it's called, I don't know, I don't care. You don't know, you don't care because you didn't go see it. It is one of the lowest performing movies in Marvel or DC cinematic history. It is the sinking ship that encapsulates the current trend of superhero movies. What we are observing in real time is the rot and decay that came from studios and executives and a culture at Hollywood that believed that it was too big to fail, that there was nothing that they could do wrong. Now, history has shown us that stagnation and apathy and arrogance mixed in with greed can destroy any company no matter how big. I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, if you had gone to me when I was a kid and you said, hey, you know what, in the future, there's not going to be a single blockbuster video, I would have said you were crazy. There were more blockbusters than Starbucks. In my area, there were like 4 Starbucks, like in the general vicinity, and there were 4 blockbusters. Actually, I think there was 5. I think there was like an express blockbuster. So technically like 4.5. If you had told me Blockbuster would be out of business and would virtually be non-existent, it wouldn't be a cultural thing, it wouldn't be anything, I would have said you were crazy. Because the truth is, no one is too big to fail. When you allow your ego to get the better of you, and you allow your company to start taking on water, which in the modern trend is wokeness and diversity hires and people that are stupid and egotistical and driven by their own narcissism rather than what's best for business, you get people at your company that say, you know what, maybe we don't need to fire Amber Heard from Aquaman 2. Maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we keep her. Instead of doing the smart thing, publicly firing her and getting some other attractive big titty bimbo to play Aquaman's wife, keep her in the movie, have the audience be like, oh, look, there's an attractive big titty bimbo. I like this movie a lot better. Instead, they tried to cut it up like it's Frankenstein's monster and patch it up and put it out, and everyone hates it. And it's the end of an era. It's the end of the mega superhero blockbusters. And I can't think of a better example of this sinking ship than Aquaman. You didn't think it was possible that a movie would be able to top the Marvels in terms of box office poison. But you didn't take into account Amber Heard. You didn't take into account that people don't want to watch the end of a dead franchise. They don't want to see what comes next, because there is nothing next. After this movie, they forget about it because the studio forgot about it. You understand? The movies that DC has been putting out, the movies that WB has been putting out, they are dead. The Flash is dead. They're not going to continue this. It's over. We know it's over. They know it's over. They've said it's over. So there's nothing to get people going. The only reason that people went to see Captain Marvel is because it was sandwiched between 2 Avengers movies, and people were told that it would be intrinsic to see the next movie, that you had to see Captain Marvel or things in Endgame wouldn't make sense. So people went to see it. They hated it. It did terribly. Oh, it was $1 billion movie. Empty theater seats. A whole scandal around this so-called charity, which was basically, we're going to take in money from charity so that we can send people to go see our movie. It was a joke. But we're at the point now where we can really examine the wreckage, the stinking fish carcass of Aquaman 2. This was a disjointed, mess of a movie. It was incompetently done because I imagine they probably cut a lot of Amber Heard scenes. Thinking, okay, well, if we just cut her scenes, then that'll make sense. Well, then the movie was disjointed. Things didn't really make sense. Aquaman was jumping from one place to another and he was just there. And so now what we observe is that they've stopped trying. They don't care anymore at all. And they didn't even bother putting in an effort that's worthy of what they've done for the past 10 years. Even if you don't like it, it's still important to go out there and try and give it your best. I mean, the laziness and the incompetence and the greed of Hollywood, it is astonishing. They are taking on water, but they're saying everything's fine. What they should have done is scrap this movie entirely. Yeah, they put in a lot of money, but the reputational damage it's huge. There's no reason that you had to get rid of Henry Cavill and the Snyderverse. You could have kept it intact. But instead, you sank your own ship. You cost yourself money and reputation. And what are you left with? You're left with nothing. Because ultimately, the thing that people don't want is to pay money to see something that the creators behind it don't care about it. It's not going to continue. The people in it, or at least Amber Heard, is genuinely one of the most repugnant, disgusting, despicable people on the planet. There's no upside. And unfortunately, what we're witnessing, again, is Hollywood in decline. A corporate structure and a series of artistic creatives that have gone all in on wokeness, all in on identity politics, all in on this thing that's dragging them down to the bottom of the sea, to Davy Jones' locker. It's dragging them all down, it's sinking the ship, but they don't care. They're still more comfortable insulting you on Twitter than actually doing a decent job. They would rather sit there insulting you as the ship sinks than do what is required to save the ship. They don't care. And I think that's evident. How could you not fire Amber Heard? How could you keep her in the movie? Again, there are a ton of really attractive women with big tits in Hollywood that could fit into a skin-tight outfit. You put them in the movie to replace Mira, guarantee your box office goes up by a bit. So, there really is no excuse for keeping Amber Heard in the movie. Other than to make a statement that in Hollywood, you can be a predator, you can be a degenerate, you can be a deviant, you can be a pill-popping psychopath. As long as you have the right politics, as long as you have the right message. That's really what it is. Johnny Depp didn't have the right message. He was a man, and he was a white man. And so they destroyed him. Ruined his career, but not her. I mean, unbelievable what happened in this whole situation. But I think the main point that I want to get to, because I don't want to drag it on for too long, it's really not worth talking about more than just a bit. But as time goes on, we're going to see less and less superhero movies. And thank God. Because it's been an ongoing thing where they have had all these movies, no direction, no vision, no passion. And there's been nobody there to say, hey, wait a minute, you want to keep this gravy train running for another 15, 20 years? Maybe we should start paying attention. Maybe we shouldn't start injecting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And anyone who promoted that, whether it's Kevin Feige or anyone else, they should be fired. Because they are continuing to do something that they know will not work at the expense of their investors, their brand, their reputation, their characters, everything they built up. They're ruining it for no upside. And I don't know what they have on Bob Iger. I don't know what they have on any of these people working at Disney or working at DC. It seems interchangeable at this point. When Marvel fails, DC fails. It's like they're simpatico. Marvel succeeded a lot more, but they had a lot more movies, and not all of them were great. So, I look at Aquaman, I look at this, and if I had to give it a rating, I'd honestly give it a 3. I don't think it's worth going to see. I don't think people are going to remember it. And unfortunately, it's symptomatic of a much bigger problem that they refuse to take seriously. They refuse to acknowledge this issue. They refuse to listen to fans in any regard. They don't take fans seriously. When I make a critique, when I make a commentary, when I give a suggestion, they don't care what I have to say. They don't care what you have to say. Even though my suggestion and oftentimes other people's commentary is the best advice they could possibly get. When I talked about doing Star Wars movies, for example, I talked about going back to the Old Republic. Do you know why I mentioned doing that? Because the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Old Republic MMO, that is 10 years worth of stories that you could either do live action or in high definition CGI. You could do all of that, and the stories are written, the characters are written, their voice, their dialogue, pretty much everything is right there for you. It's like, hey, we handed you this on a silver platter. This is billions of dollars right here. If you just use it, use this. Not about forced diversity, not about obnoxious British Kathleen Kennedy female inserts. No, just a good, solid quality product. If they did that, they'd be sitting on billions more from Star Wars. Instead, what did they do? They didn't listen to the fans. And they didn't listen, and they didn't listen to the point where nobody cares about Star Wars. And now nobody cares about DC. Nobody cares about Marvel. It has sunk. And it didn't have to be that way. It did not have to be that way. So, we look back, ladies and gentlemen, at this entire situation. We look back at this movie, the end of an era, more examples of failure, refusal to listen, refusal to do the right thing, refusal to do what fans wanted. If they had fired Amber Heard, gotten another big titty bimbo who was beautiful to play the role of Mira, had it be, a much more epic movie rather than a cheap buddy cop movie, had it feel like it mattered, not gone out and said that the Snyderverse is over. You know what they could have done? They could have said, hey, so what we're going to do is we're going to have the Snyderverse continue. It's in its own multiverse. And we're having another multiverse with this called the Gunniverse, where James Gunn is coming in and he's going to make this alternate universe as well. See, that would be fine. That would be interesting. That's how you get around a lot of this stuff is doing the multiverse, but you don't even have to acknowledge it's a multiverse. You could just have different movies at the same time. You know, when Star Trek was coming out, they would often layer one ending of a Star Trek series with the beginning of another. They did that with TNG and Deep Space Nine. Then Deep Space Nine overlapped with Voyager a bit. There's nothing wrong with doing two movies with the same character. I mean, anyway, I think this footage for this video has been perfect to encapsulate the capsizing of these brands. You know, these woke individuals, they care nothing about quality. They have sunk these brands to the point where people aren't even going to see them out of curiosity. Doing 40 million opening weekend, that is astonishing. That is record-breaking loss. There's no way they're going to recoup their money from this. And as Aquaman sinks back under the sea, we have time to reflect and analyze where these massive behemoth companies went wrong. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bid you guys a good day. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you listening. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, and I'll see you next time.